Imagine for a moment that civilization, this huge complex thing we're all part of, isn't just happening to us. It's not just some inevitable force or total chaos.
Right.
What if it's actually more like a game? A massive multiplayer game you're all playing right now. And here's the real kicker. What if the usual way we think about winning, dominating others, grabbing all the resources, what if that's actually not the best strategy?
Okay, interesting. So what is the winning move then?
What if the key to, like, progress, maybe even our long-term survival, is figuring out how to get everyone, or, well, enough people anyway, to cooperate, to coordinate in smart ways?
That's a really powerful shift in thinking, isn't it? Seeing our collective future not just as something we react to, but something we can actively play and maybe even improve.
Exactly. And that's the perspective we're using for this deep dive. We've been looking at some really interesting material, specifically excerpts from something called IXO, a platform for voluntary cooperation.
Ah, IXO, yes.
And we're connecting that directly to ideas from the Foresight Institute, their whole concept of gaming the future.
They're proposing a different way to interact with the world, seeing the future less some fixed point we're heading towards and more like a dynamic system.
A system you can play.
The system you can game, exactly.
So our mission today is basically this. Unpack that metaphor, civilization as a game, then explore why we need totally new kinds of infrastructure for smarter cooperation.
Makes sense.
And then dig into the actual tech, this new kind of game. The idea is to give you, listening, a really clear sense of this framework and the practical systems that might actually make it work.
Okay, let's start with that core metaphor then. Civilization as a multiplayer strategy game. Existential stakes.
Meaning it really matters for everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And crucially, there's no pause button. You can't just stop the game. It's always running.
Okay, but how is this civilizational game different from, I don't know, a game of chess? Or even one of those giant online games?
That's a good question. Like in chess, the rules are totally fixed.
Right.
You know who the players are. And it's usually zero sum.
One winner, one loser.
Exactly. But this civilizational game, it's wide open. The rules aren't always clear. Sometimes they change. The players, they're constantly shifting. It's individuals, companies, whole countries, maybe even AIs down the line. It's wildly multi-agent.
Okay, so if the rules are fluid, players are diverse, always changing, what does that tell us about the best way to play? What's the winning strategy?
This is where that key insight comes in. In this sort of game, this open-ended multi-agent setup, the most powerful move, the one that might actually lead to winning in a meaningful sense, isn't the old way domination beating everyone else.
Right.
It's coordination, figuring out how to get all these different, often self-interested players to actually work together on a big, complicated goals.
Coordination. Like the ultimate power-up in the game. And that connects straight back to that Foresight Institute idea, gaming the future, doesn't it?
It really does. The future isn't just something bearing down on us that we react to. It's a system we're in, playing, and one we can potentially improve, not just by individual effort, but through a much smarter cooperation, scaled up.
Yeah, better teamwork, basically.
Exactly, and that's where IXO comes into the picture. It's not trying to dictate the future, it's aiming to build the underlying infrastructure. The tools.
The playing field.
Yeah, infrastructure that allows for new kinds of games to emerge for navigating what's next. Games specifically designed around mutual benefit, being able to verify impact, and being adaptable over time.
They have specific name for these games. Paretotropian games. Sounds a
Yep.
bit technical. What does paratropian actually mean here?
It comes from economics, from Pareto efficiency. In a nutshell, a Paretotropian system is one where any progress, any positive change ideally creates value for everyone involved. Or, at the very least, it makes someone better off without making anyone else worse off.
Okay, so it's not about winning at the expense of others.
Precisely. The aim isn't just individual gain, especially if it harms others. It's fundamentally about trying to engineer positive sum outcomes, situations where collaboration makes the pie bigger for everyone.
So the whole system is set up so that the path to success involves making things better for others too. That sounds pretty different from how a lot of things work now.
It is a radical design principle for IXO. Voluntary cooperation is the absolute foundation, the bedrock, the design primitive, as they call it, meaning the system is explicitly designed to only work if agents, people, organizations, whatever, actively choose to join in. The rules need to be transparent, and the way value is created and shared has to be built right in. It really reinforces that gaming the future idea. Cooperation isn't just a nice outcome here, it's engineered to be the fundamental rule of play.
Okay, smarter cooperation, voluntary participation, games designed for mutual benefit. It sounds great in theory, but how do you actually build something like that? How do you get trust? How do you enforce rules without some big central boss?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where the specific technologies come into play. A set of tools, basically technologies of cooperation.
All right, lay them out for us. What are these building blocks?
Okay, first up, you need a reliable way to know who's who, but in a way that individuals control. That's digital identity and authentication. Think secure digital identifiers, often called DIDs. Yeah, decentralized identifiers. It's like a super secure digital passport or fingerprint, but crucially, you control the keys, not some company or government. This is vital for both sovereignty, you own your digital self, and accountability. You need to know who or what is doing things in this system.
Got it. Sovereign identity. Makes sense. What's next?
Next, you need a way to check if claims are true. Did someone actually do the thing they said they did? Especially in a complex system where, let's face it, not everyone trusts everyone else. This is where you get things like agentic oracles and cognitive digital twins.
Whoa, okay. Agentic oracles, cognitive digital twins. That sounds very sci-fi. What do they actually do?
Think of a digital twin as a really detailed simulation, a digital copy of some real-world process or system.
A virtual factory or a
Yeah.
city grid, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. And the agentic oracles are like smart agents, maybe advanced AI, that can observe, analyze, and interact inside that digital twin. Their main job is to act as impartial, automated referees or analysts. They can verify claims people make, crunch complex data, and report back on what objectively happened within that simulated environment.
So they're like trustworthy witnesses confirming what's real in the system.
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah. And that leads right into the next piece, verifiable data and outcome tokens. The information these oracles verify the actions people took, the results they achieve, gets recorded as tamper-proof claims, like etched in digital stone.
Okay.
And these verified claims can then be represented, maybe tokenized, as proof of outcome.
Right. Why is making data tamper-proof and turning outcomes into tokens so important here?
Because in a big complex game with all sorts of different players, people have different motivations. And as the source mentions, maybe even different ways of understanding the world, different epistemologies.
Different perspectives.
Exactly. So if I claim I finished a task or achieved a specific environmental benefit, the system, using the oracle watching the digital twin, can verify it, lock that fact onto a shared unchangeable ledger, and maybe issue me a token. That token is cryptographic proof, verifiable proof of that specific outcome.
Ah, okay. So it creates a shared source of truth about what happened, even if people started off disagreeing or having different goals.
Precisely. It builds a foundation of trustable facts, recorded immutably.
Okay, so we've got sovereign identity, automated verification by these oracles in digital twins, and tamper-proof records of outcomes via tokens. What about the rules? How are the actual game rules managed?
That piece is handled by what they call programmable governance. This relies on things like smart contracts and executable protocols. Basically, the rules of the game are written directly into code,
Making them
transparent and automatically enforced by the system itself. No need for a human referee for every little thing. But these coded rules aren't necessarily set in stone forever. The governance mechanisms themselves can be designed to be adaptable. They can be upgraded or changed if the participants reach a consensus. So it's like governance as code, but code that can evolve.
Okay, let's piece this together. You combine these sovereign digital identities, the automated verification through oracles and twins, the verifiable data and outcome tokens, and these programmable but adaptable rules. What kind of system does that actually create?
It's like laying the foundation for a kind of civilisational operating system.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a system designed to handle a huge number of different players, let the rules evolve over time, and stay understandable, accountable, and, well, playable not just for us now, but for generations to come.
And that brings up something the source called a profound temporal challenge, which sounds serious.
It is.
How do you design a system today that people, communities, maybe super smart AIs in the future will actually want to inherit and keep using, instead of just seeing it as old, clunky, maybe even oppressive and wanting to just scrap it and start over?
It's a massive question, isn't it? We're talking about building legacy systems for futures we literally can't imagine fully. How does IXO try to tackle this? The core ideas seem to be interoperability, modularity, and involvability. Built-in flexibility,
What
basically.
does that look like practically?
It means the different tech pieces should be able to plug into other systems. Think building blocks. The protocols should be forkable, like open source software.
Meaning communities could copy the base code and tweak it for their own needs.
Exactly. Create their own variations or upgrades. The governance systems themselves are designed to be upgradable. And really importantly, data sovereignty is key. Participants keep control over their own information. Stops the system becoming some centralized monster, a surveillance tool that future generations would rightly reject.
There's a core assumption there, isn't there? That future players, future generations, future AIs, they won't just be different. They'll likely be way smarter, faster, more capable than we are.
Absolutely. That seems to be baked into the thinking, and therefore, the system you design now shouldn't box them in. It shouldn't limit their agency or their ability to improve the rules or invent totally new ways to play the game.
So it's less about predicting exactly what they'll need.
And more about building a foundation that's humble, flexible enough to be inherited and reshaped by potentially much smarter successors.
Okay, so let's loop back then, bring it all together with that core metaphor. Maybe the biggest takeaway from Gaming the Future and this IXO material isn't just saying civilization is a game,
Right.
but that the way forward involves actively reframing it and then actually building the tools for it to become a cooperative game, a massive ongoing co-op effort.
Yeah, and it's important to be clear to frame it more as engineering. Designing a system specifically intended to mitigate some really scary failure modes we seem to be facing now. Things like coordination collapse.
Where global problems just become too big and complex for us to handle together.
Exactly. Or surveillance authoritarianism, where tech enables total control. Or ecological overshoot, where we just overwhelm the planet's systems.
And the idea is that smart design, embedding the right principles in these foundational technologies and protocols, could help us steer away from those traps.
That's the proposition. And this isn't just philosophical musing. See it as practical systems engineering for the future, applying design thinking to governance, to economics, to how we coordinate all kinds of intelligence, human and maybe machine.
And IXO, in this view, is one concrete attempt to make that paradigm real. Not just an idea, but working code.
Functional, verifiable code, yeah, that's the goal they articulate.
It's definitely a compelling way to think about the challenges ahead. So we've journeyed from seeing civilization as this grand game to understanding why smarter cooperation might be the winning move, exploring this idea of Paretotropian games designed for mutual benefit.
Looking at the tech-needed sovereign IDs, oracles, verifiable outcomes.
And then tackling that huge challenge of designing for future players we can't even fully imagine.
Which really brings us back to those closing questions, doesn't it? If the future is a game, what game are we actually playing right now?
And, maybe more pointedly, is it the right game? Are we playing it well? The ambition laid out by something like IXO is pretty bold. It's not just about trying to win within the existing rules, which often feels zero-sum. It's about proposing and actually trying to build the infrastructure to change the rules.
To redesign the game itself.
Yeah, so that winning fundamentally means creating outcomes where, ideally, everyone can thrive. That's the vision put forward, a future worth gaming for.
A game where shared prosperity is the victory condition. It's quite a thought.
So maybe a final thought for you, listening. What might change, even in small ways, if you started looking at the complex interactions in your own life and your community? Maybe even how you think about global issues, not just as contests to be won or lost against others, but as opportunities for strategic, maybe even verifiable, cooperation. Opportunities to play a better game within this huge, evolving, multiplayer reality we call civilization.